Welcome to the Music for Transformation interview series, where I get to interview amazing people who use music to enhance their own lives and that of other people as well. So first of all, just hit that subscribe button now and enjoy the interview. So today I'm joined by Richard Salvidge, who is a rock DJ. Thank you ever so much for joining us today, Richard.
You're welcome, James.
So tell us a little bit about, I know you've got, many years experience with music. Tell us a little bit about your story and, what you do and how you got involved in music.
I got into DJing around about the turn of the century. I was down in university. I got involved with the entertainment department down there. They had a nightclub that was attached to the university itself. So I spent most of my time messing around with lighting and sound engineering and things like that. And then I sort of got into DJing by accident. It wasn't something that I particularly wanted to do. It wasn't really a calling, but actually when I did it, I found I absolutely loved it. And so 20 years later, here we are. I've done destination weddings in Cyprus. I've done corporate events, birthdays, entertainments, a lot of radio work. Started off on hospital radio, then I moved to community radio. So I started off on hospital radio, Tunbridge Wells. Then I moved in fact, I did that in conjunction with Susie Radio down in Sussex. And then most recently, when lockdown hit, we went online, and a friend of mine called Neil Long, who's an ex-Capital FM guy, said to me, do you want to get involved with some online stuff that I'm doing? And I'd known Neil for a long time because he and I worked together in a company that he's got called Night Fantastic. So we were doing loads of work together for 4 or 5 years. And I said, yeah, okay, fine, I'll do it. And he said, well, I know you like your rock. I know you want to do a rock show. Let's do a rock show. So I was like, okay, fine, we'll do a rock show. So we did that on Mixcloud. After we started off on Facebook, in fact, but then when Facebook got a little bit tight about copyright, we looked at other options. I've got a Mixcloud site, Neil's got a Mixcloud site, and all of the stuff that we do pretty much goes on there. So we did that. On the back of that, I had a phone call from a guy at Paisley Radio in Scotland, and he said he wanted to do a rock show, and he'd heard my stuff through Mixcloud, and would I like to do it? So I was like, yeah, okay, fine, I'll do it. So I do that. That goes out on Wednesday nights, and I love it. It's always been a passion of mine since I was, 2 inches tall. I was introduced to sort of rock and metal by my mum. Actually, she was a massive Deep Purple fan, and I sort of went from there. So early Ian Gillan and early Rainbow and Black Sabbath and stuff like that. That was the sort of stuff that I grew up with. It's been a part of my life all my life. Simple as that.
Excellent. That's amazing. Great story. And I love the way that you've obviously adapted to still make sure that you're part of music and still making, getting music out there despite the restraints and constrictions that we've had with lockdown, etc. Something I want to talk a lot about the benefits of music and, what it means to you and what it means to other people. But just something I want to touch on is the fact you became this DJ. You said that you didn't know that you were going to do that, but then you became the DJ and you loved it. What is it about DJing in particular that you really like?
It's a chance of expression for yourself. Firstly, because when you're a kid, when you're growing up, you always say to your mates, "Oh, have you heard this? Have a listen to this. Have a listen to this. I've just come across this. I've seen this." And the discovery of new music is 3/4 of the game, as far as I can see. So having the opportunity to you effectively tell people who you are by what you play. And then once you get properly into it, you realize that actually going to work where the entire, all the people that are there, they've got one job, which is basically to have fun. And your job is to make sure that they do. And you can't get that sort of satisfaction, I don't think, from any other job. If you're a customer service rep and you've done a really good job, you're not going to know. you're not going to get that sense of satisfaction. You're not going to be able to see immediately the results of what you do. But when you're a DJ, you're in the booth, you can see what's happening. You can see the way that the audience are responding to you and the music that you're playing, and you get to interact with them. So it's a very happy thing. It's not a chore. It's not something that you get up in the morning and you go, oh God, I've got to go to work. You don't get that, because you're there to have fun, they're there to have fun, and you interact with everybody, and it's just a lovely thing to do. So that's one of the things that I don't think you can get anywhere else.
That's amazing, and certainly I can relate to that. Not necessarily as a DJ, but through being in a band, through performing, and of course being there at live gigs or music events. So I can certainly relate to that. Now let's just say then, you used the word fun. How important, and we'll talk about other music benefits, but how important is this word fun? Because I'm sure there might be some people potentially watching that, and sometimes me myself, I kind of think because I'm an adult and I'm trying to do this with business and trying to achieve that, sometimes fun gets pushed to the back, and we see that word fun as being something that kids do, but serious adults don't do. So how important is that fun, do you think then, Richard?
I think at the moment it's vital. Simple as that. Because if you think about it, you've got 58 million people in the UK, 68 million people in the UK, something like that, and they're not allowed to do anything, pretty much. They can't. They don't have outlets now to offload, and everybody's got to offload. Everybody needs that downtime and that fun time. When you're kids, it's all fun because you don't have to worry about stuff that adults have to worry about. But as soon as you introduce something like, now it's an 80s night, it used to be a 70s night, now it's in fact coming into 90s nights. As soon as you introduce an 80s night or a 90s night or a theme night or any sort of event, you've got people that turn up purely to forget the stuff that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis and just unwind and let go and get rid of all the angst and the stuff that they've got internally and let their hair down. And that is, I think, vitally important, because wouldn't life be boring if you couldn't? And we're finding that now. And wouldn't, in terms of mental health, for example, how many people have been adversely affected by the coronavirus lockdown? Everybody. To a person, everybody's been affected by it, because they don't have, there's no end in sight. It's relentless. Every day it's full of, the news is full of it. The people's conversations are pretty much all about coronavirus or the effects of it. Everyone's worried about their jobs, about their houses, and there's no outlet to de-stress. And so fun is an integral part. And if, the entertainment industry is designed to provide that conduit, and we can't do that job at the moment. I haven't done a live gig since basically March. Yeah, because we can't.
So many relevant points there, and I agree with everything you've said there. And I think that there's so many aspects of music and bands and performances that people can relate to. And I think it is worth pointing out, of course, that although we want people to have that outlet, they've still got to deal with the challenges in their life. But sometimes they just need that escapism, don't they? Just to get away from the chores of everyday life, because life is challenging, regardless of whether we've got COVID or not. Life was challenging before COVID. So, I know, for example, if I go to a gig and watch a band that I really enjoy, it's like I'm so present. I'm not thinking about what I've got to do next week or, this and that. I'm just so absorbed in that moment. And it is an absolute incredible feeling, isn't it? Would you like to sort of comment any more on that?
Yeah. Obviously, we run a business. DJing is a business. It started as a hobby. I've been lucky enough to be able to monetize that, or at least in theory, notwithstanding coronavirus. But yeah, it's, if you go to work, you do your 9 to 5, you go home, you need some respite. So you go to your gig and you're in the moment. You're absolutely right. You forget everything and you're entirely focused, and you're in a crowd of, be it 200 or 20,000 or 100,000 people. And every single one of those people is there for the same reason. And where you've got that sort of shared experience, you're never going to get that anywhere else other than in a live venue. And some of the live venues are absolutely beautiful. You know, you go to places like Brixton, for example, which is probably the only venue that I've ever been in where it feels like you're outside when you're indoors because of the decor that they put in the place. And then you've got all the little venues, you know, Camden Underworld and that sort of stuff. And then you go to the big stages, the O2s with a capacity of 50,000 or whatever. And then you go to your stadia, so you do Wembley or Twickenham or whatever it is. But every single person is there for the same shared experience. And because we're social animals, there's so many people that I've met at gigs that I still would never have met otherwise, but I still keep in touch with. I went to a Maiden gig, for example, in the O2 probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and I met an Israeli guy that was just next to me. He'd flown over specifically to see the gig, and I still keep in touch with the guy. And you know, that sort of interaction you'd never get anywhere else. I would never, in any other walk of life, had I not been there that night, we would never have met. And so that the power of events is it develops your social network for a start. How many people, you know, when you go to you know, weekend long festivals and you camp next to the, you know, in a field with other campers. And again, they're there for the same reason you're there, to have fun, to unwind, to relax, to let go, to forget about the, you know, whatever it is that's on your mind, and just have a damn good time and just enjoy the fact that you're there with everybody else. And those relationships, they do last.
Absolutely. I can certainly relate to that, how music, you know, like you say, everyone's there. So you feel automatically connected with those people. You've got something that's you know, in a related to them, and you feel automatically connected. And it was then making me think, you know, maybe you can relate to this yourself, Richard. I don't know. I can relate to it to a certain extent. And I know there's lots of other people where maybe they feel a little bit different. Maybe they're at school or something, and they feel that little bit different, and their friends or the other people in their class are not into the same things as them. Music is obviously a great example of that. And again, you know, the ability to go to a live event where everyone maybe looks similar, they're dressing similar, you know, they like the same music. It is great for people those people that sort of maybe feel a bit of an outcast, to actually realize that there's lots of people like them too, and they can really be, you know, absorbed into that and included into that.
I'll take that a step further, and I'm going to mention specifically a band called Disturbed, which is a band that I like very much, not only for the music but because of why they do what they do. Lead singer David Drayman had a particularly difficult childhood. He had his girlfriend committed suicide when he was 18. He ended up on cocaine for a few years, came off of that, and he has had an ongoing mental health battle for pretty much all of his life. So if you listen to the songs that they produce in particular, every single gig that they go to, they make a point of saying, you know, we're all in this together. You're not on your own. You can talk to somebody. And they're very, very strong advocates of mental health promotion. And to say, you know, a lot of people will suffer in silence. A lot of people won't say anything. And it's always the ones that never say anything is the ones that are going to do something drastic, like end their own lives. And, you know, the number of people, I've got no figures on this, but it stands up to logical scrutiny, that because music is such an emotive thing, and because it touches you, if you listen to it, it touches you on an internal, on a very base, primeval, emotional level. I wonder how many people's lives have been saved for listening to a track that they really identify with, and lyrics that they can really understand, and that helps them. You know, this is why, for example, you've done the motivational songs and the inner anthem. It's the same. It's the logical end of the start of that spectrum. And so to have all of that taken away, and the government to say you can't do that, you know, where does that leave you? It leaves you feeling isolated, vulnerable, alone, helpless, and pick a negative adjective. So you know, the fact that it might be worth, you know, 4 or 5 billion quid to the economy once you take music tourism into into consideration, it's worth so much more in terms of the mental health of the nation.
Absolutely. And that's the stuff that you can't always quantify, can you? You know, you can take your stats and you can look at record sales and things like that, but you can't always quantify all those added additional bonuses. And I think it's very important where you could have an organization, a health organization or a government policy or something like that, that tries to get over a message about good mental health. But people are generally going to respond to people that, again, they feel related to, they feel connected to. And again, you know, the bands, the music, they feel really connected to them. And The Disturbed is a great example, because there you've got someone who has experienced those problems. They know what it feels like. And what I love about that, of course, is they've taken their challenges and they've turned it into something positive. They've turned it into something good. So what a great role model, you know, someone that's actually out there doing it, showing other people that you can sort of turn your life around and you can end up inspiring lots of people. And like you say, you know, that was the idea of me behind the Empowerment Songs albums, because I'd felt sort of pain. I'd felt low self-esteem. I'd worked on myself, and therefore I wanted to create music which expressed myself and would help other people as well. And there's countless other examples of music doing good. You know, obviously there's the Live Aid stuff, you know, think about how many lives that has helped and that has saved. So I think that there's so many ways that you can use music for good, isn't there? Have you got any sort of other examples yourself of how music is used to really help people's lives?
I think the easiest example is the most obvious one. Suppose you've come home from work, you've had a really bad day, you're angry, you're angsty, you've had an argument with your boss, you've had an argument with your clients, you've had an argument with your colleagues, and you've just had enough for the day. And suppose that you are a massive classical music fan. Suppose that you're a massive Beethoven fan and your favourite piece is Opus number 3. And you put that music on at a night time and see how long it takes you to have all that angst disappear.
That's it. Absolutely. It's a great example, because music is one of those things that can change your state very quickly. And we all know there's other methods as well. There's, you know, the meditation and just slowing down your breathing and all of those sort of things to calm down. And we can energize ourselves doing a bit of exercise and running around and all of that. And that's all great stuff. But music, just put a certain track on and it can do certain things. And on the Inner Anthem website, I've actually got a video series that explains some different ways I use music, because I use music sometimes before calls like this, because I want to ensure that, you know, I'm feeling good and energized so that we have a great interview. So I sometimes just put a track on. And in fact, I did. I was putting Kiss Crazy Nights on. Okay, great, you know, great song to rock out to and make you feel good. And I'll use certain types of music to energize me. But then if I'm concentrating, I'll put some classical music on, some Baroque type music, which helps me concentrate and focus and things like that. Often of an evening before I go to bed, I might put real sort of relaxation type music, which I genuinely do believe helps me get to sleep. So there's so many uses, isn't there? Have you used, because obviously you like your rock music, do you sort of have other types of music you use for various reasons?
I like it all, to be honest. You know, music it's because it's so innate to me, and it's such a part of, you know, my life and growing up, and you know, we're around it 24/7. You even go into an elevator and there's some tickety-tocky music going on in the background that you know, you're not consciously aware of it. You know, why do they use music in shops? Because a certain music makes you buy stuff. You know, why do they use smells in shops? It's the same thing. But yeah, I think you know, from my point of view, I use music in a number of ways. You know, if I'm going to a major event and I want to get fired up, I put something on that's going to, you know, fire me up. You know, why did Rocky have Eye of the Tiger on it? Why? Because it's a galvanizing song. It's as simple as that. It makes you feel like you want to achieve. The best example is you take a passage in a film that makes you feel a certain way. Say you've got you've got a funeral scene going on, and you've got a picture or a video of some pallbearers carrying a coffin down the road. Turn the sound off. See how differently you get affected. And then you put the sound back on again, and you get all the mood comes in, and the emotion comes in, and the music speaks to you and explains the scene. It's exactly that. You know, music is all around us, and that's exactly what it does. And it's very, very psychologically powerful. You know, to change mindsets and change lives, all it takes is the right piece of music to motivate you to do something, to motivate you not to do something.
So true, so true. Great examples. And I often use films as an example, actually. I often use horror movie as an example, you know, where it's really scary, gets you really anxious. But again, if you were to mute it, it's not half as effective there.
And in fact, Rob Zombie does that in his music because he's a massive horror fan. So Rob Zombie has a lot of horror elements are present in his music, which is why he's been asked to do soundtracks for so many horror films, because there's a mix of genres, a mix of media, I should say.
That's it. And the soundtrack is so important, isn't it? Like you say, you don't always realize it because you're absorbed in the storyline and what's going on, so you don't necessarily consciously realize it, but it's there subconsciously. And that's something else as well. You know, we can really consciously listen to music, be it the tune, be it the arrangement of the instruments, be it the lyrics. You know, some people prefer the lyrics, some people are, you know, less about the lyrics. They don't really necessarily listen to lyrics. It's just more about the melody, for example. Or, you know, even music in the background, it is going in there. It is going in our mind. It is, you know, going into our subconscious mind. And we know this because a week later, we might have heard a song once, and a week later, we're still singing it. You know, something like Baby Shark is a prime example, isn't it? You know, all these adults find they're going around singing Baby Shark before they've realised that they're in an important meeting and shouldn't be doing it. And that's it. Earworm, absolutely. And so you know that it's actually going in there and have an effect.
Yeah.
So
I mean, what other earworms have you got? The ones that immediately occur to me, apart from Baby Shark, are things like Gangnam Style from PSI, which was massive a few years ago. You've got the Aqua's Barbie Girl. That's an earworm that everybody loves to hate. I know a song that will get on your nerves. You've been doing that since you were 6.
Absolutely, there's so many. Is it for me? It's I don't know if you've ever been to Euro Disney and gone on It's a Small World ride, but that's got one of those really catchy tunes. It keeps going over and over again. And you know, that's the thing about music, isn't it? Here's an interesting question just for you then, Richard. I imagine I might know the answer, but would you say you are more of a melody type person or the lyrics? What's, you know, more important to you within a song?
Well, to me, I would say I listen to a song in a different way to most people, because you probably might identify with this, because we listen to it from a practical point of view and from a business point of view. And from a will this work in a set point of view, we will probably listen to things in a different way. I listen to the radio in a different way than everybody else, because I'm not actually listening to the song itself in the radio. I'm listening to how it links in and how the presenters are doing their jobs and how the links work and how the general mix sounds. But you know, once you turn that off, it's the melody and the groove really for me to start with. But then if I want to isolate a specific part of the song, suppose I wanted to sort of explore the bass line, for example, there's a really catchy bass line and I want to listen to that. I've got this ability to volumize that in my head and minimize everything else. So I focus on the specific part of the song that I want to listen to. And if you listen to something like, go and listen to Marillion Script for a Jester's Tear, for example. If you listen, it's one of those concept albums that it's just one piece of music split over eight or 9 different tracks. But when you listen to it, every time I listen to it, there's something new that I haven't spotted consciously. You know, it's a bit like for the film buffs, it's when we've seen Life of Brian thousands of times, and every time you watch it, there's something new that you pick up on. And it's the complexity of it and that really surprises me all the time, how complex this stuff is once you drill down into it. But when you come out of that and you listen to it in the whole, and it's just sort of on in the background, it's just, you don't notice any of that consciously, but you would notice if it wasn't there.
Absolutely, great points. And this, you know, deviating slightly, but it's along the same lines. This is another reason why I like live music, because it's different to the studio recording. And I actually love bands that improvise as well. You know, I love to see real improvisation, and that's how you know you've got a real good quality band, that they can just, you know, it's not even necessarily rehearsed. They can just take the song wherever they want.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up, I was a big fan of The Who, and they were the ultimate for that. You know, they never played the song the same twice. You know, Townsend would just go off and do his thing, and the rest of the band would just kind of follow. So yeah, I really like that as well. And again, I see that as a way again of self-expression. You know, I mean, I suppose Pete Townsend is a perfect example of that. You know, smashing up guitars, it was a form of self-expression, not necessarily a positive one, but that was him again getting out his aggression. So it's not even just for the you know, the audience. It was, he needed that to get out his aggression, because he was obviously a, you know, young man and now an old man who's probably still got that anger, that aggression to him, and that came through in the music. So
the best example I can give you of that is Steve Vai. He was taught by Joe Satriani. He's one of the most well-known virtuosos on the planet, and I went to see him some years ago at Hammersmith, I think it was, and he stopped the gig midway through and he said, "Should we just make a song up, lads?" And they're like, "Yeah, let's do that." So he just made something up on the spot and said to the audience, "Do you like that?" And they were like, "Oh, I'm not really sure about that." So he went, "All right, what about this?" So he played something else and the audience went, "Yeah, we like that." And then within about 5 minutes he had an entire song written, and they just jammed it and messed around with it, and it took 15-20 minutes, and they just went wherever they wanted with it. And you can only really do that as a band if you are at one with your band members, if you know where they're going to go and you know what their thought processes are, and you've been with them and played with them and rehearsed with them for so much time that you innately know that everybody's on the same hymn sheet, literally, and then you can have some absolutely awesome times.
That's an amazing example. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also a case of them being happy to be vulnerable, isn't it? You know, they were asking for feedback. The audience didn't like that, but, you know, they feel good enough themselves. They believe in themselves enough to be able to be vulnerable, be courageous, and actually do that. So that's amazing. Good. As we start to sort of wrap this up, anything else that you sort of wanted to say, Richard, you know, in regards to this whole idea of how music really benefits us and heals us and you know, does a lot of good in the world?
Yeah.
The
long and short of it is, you try going a day without listening to music and see how you feel at the end of it.
Some people obviously aren't so influenced by music, but for the majority of people out there, they really are influenced by music in so many ways. I have a question for you, Richard. It's something I thought is one of those quirky sort of questions, and you hope that you'd actually never actually have this choice. But if you had to lose your eyesight or your hearing, what would it be?
That's a really tough question, because music to me is also a visual thing, because I go to so many live events. I'd say it's a really tough question, isn't it? Eyes. Because at least I can still listen.
That's kind of where I am, you know, and you know, if you were actually faced with that, you never quite know what decision you would make. But yeah, I'm kind of like that, you know. I sort of feel, well, with my loved ones, I can still hug them, I can still hold them, but you know, music is kind of gone, isn't it, if you can't hear it? So yeah, that's an interesting thing.
I mean, yeah, that's a really horrible conundrum for me, because you know, when I listen to music, I automatically imagine, because I do light and sound, I automatically imagine how I would present the lighting, for example. And so it is a visual thing in my mind as well. I almost see the music at the same time as hear it. So yeah, that's a really horrible question.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
No, I wasn't. No.
Brilliant. Okay, so if anyone wanted to sort of find out about you in terms of, you know, what you're doing DJ wise, etc., is there any particular places you'd send them to?
Yeah, there is. You can go to my Mixcloud page, which is mixcloud.com/Richie Vince. Or my DJ page is, if you go onto Facebook, it's DJ Richie Rich Kent. Brilliant. Instagram is DJ Richie Rich Kent. I'm in the middle of rebranding from Richie Rich to Richie Vince because of the rock show, and the reason for that is Tommy Vance, my rock idol. Richie Vince sounds a bit similar. It's a little bit of a tribute to him.
Lovely. Oh, excellent. I like those little quirky stories as well. So that's excellent. We'll make sure we put them in the show notes anyway, those links. So thank you ever so much, Richard. It's been really enjoyable. I mean, we could speak about music for hours and hours and days, couldn't we? But thank you ever so much. And thank you.
You're welcome. Cheers, James.
Thank you so much for watching. 3 quick things to do now. 1, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. 2, go to the inneranthem.com website and access your free video series, the 3-minute music life hack, so you can find out how to use music to enhance your life. And thirdly, get your own copy of the Empowerment Songs albums at the inneranthem.com website.